Well, we all knew it was probably going to end like this, but it feels somewhat anticlimactic. Viva Frei, Montreal litigator turned YouTuber. I'm not in my standard office because I was going to take the day off today, but I just saw the news and there's no way not to do a vlog on this. Michael Flynn receives a full pardon from Donald Trump. This is something of an anticlimactic end to what has been a saga, a journey, and especially for me, I've been following this story. I think it's been for about a year now, and I started off as being someone who thought Michael Flynn was guilty. I read the headlines, I saw what was being said in the news, I thought it was a simple, clear-cut case. As I started following it, I started learning, I started realizing that I wasn't being told the entire story. I started realizing the nuances and the legal intricacies of this situation, and that was even before all of the exculpatory evidence started getting released, bit by bit, to show the degree to which Michael Flynn was, I think the expression in the industry is done dirty by the FBI. But he's been pardoned. Now, we all knew this was sort of coming because in the absence of an acquittal and in the absence of Trump getting reelected, we knew that the pardon was probably going to be the only outcome because Donald Trump was not exactly going to leave Michael Flynn to a new administration of prosecution. But what do I think of all this? It's a whirlwind of emotions and a roller coaster of emotions. Anybody who doesn't know the full saga, I have a playlist on YouTube. I've done over a dozen videos on this, documenting his guilty plea, documenting him wanting to withdraw his guilty plea, the Department of Justice filing a motion to dismiss the criminal complaint against Michael Flynn, the revelations of the FBI misconduct that were slowly leaked, the Brady evidence or the Brady disclosures that were not respected by the prosecution, the partisan nature that the judicial system can have, from Emmett Sullivan to the Court of Appeal, to the full panel of the Court of Appeal, back to Judge Emmett Sullivan, and the pardon. What do we make of it? The timing is peculiar. It does not lend optimism to Trump's sentiment of a second term, because if Trump were thoroughly convinced he was going to have a second term, presumably he wouldn't pardon Flynn, or might have waited a little bit. Other people might say that it might be something of a further distancing from counsel in that file, given certain public statements that were made, and that the Trump administration, now focusing on recounts and cross-checking signatures of a contested election, doesn't want to have to deal with the secondary drama that might go along with the representation of Flynn before the courts. My thoughts on this? Can you appreciate the judicial resources, the dollar value of the judicial resources that have gone into this prosecution of General Flynn for 4 years now? Poof. Just burnt. You may as well put millions of dollars in a pile and douse it in gasoline and set it on fire. That's what happened from a prosecutorial standpoint. Michael Flynn, the amount of money that he has spent, wasted on his defense for years of prosecution, the procedural chicanery that went on in this file, it is something that is difficult to comprehend, where we say, the prosecution's been going on for 4 years. Put a dollar value on that. Hearings where you have prosecutors funded by tax dollars. Judge Sullivan himself getting represented by Beth Wilkinson, private counsel, taxpayer dollars, going up to a panel of 3 judges of the Court of Appeal, taxpayer dollars, counsel there. Then it goes to a full panel. 10 judges of the Court of Appeal hearing this, sending it back to Sullivan, hearing after hearing in front of Sullivan. It's unimaginable, the cost, the administrative costs of this. And the pardon. The pardon is going to be one of those solutions that's going to leave as many people happy as unhappy on both sides. From Flynn's side, okay, he's happy. He's been pardoned. In theory, there's no risk of further prosecution. He can go on and live his golden years the way he was intended to. but it's a pardon. It's not an acquittal by the court. So it's a victory, a liberation to some extent for Flynn, but it's not an acquittal by the courts. And there's always going to be the other side who's going to say he didn't get acquitted. He pleaded guilty twice, even though we know that there's a big asterisk to that. There's always going to be the other side that's going to say he pleaded guilty twice. He could not get acquitted by the courts. And so he only relied on a pardon from his political ally, Donald Trump. And what's going to be most frustrating about this? Judge Sullivan will not have been vindicated, but he will not have had to answer judicially for his conduct, and he will get away without having to make a final determination that could have either been appealed and affirmed or appealed and overturned. And in his own mind, sure as sugar, he's going to sit there thinking, this is proof, this is the evidence that the Department of Justice's motion to dismiss the charges was politically motivated and corrupt, and that my investigation into that, even though it was never supposed to be an investigation, my inquiry to test the validity and the soundness of the DOJ's motion to dismiss is justified. And the pardon is evidence that it was a corrupt decision to do so. So you know that while people are going to urinate and moan, or piss and moan, that pardon has been given to Flynn, the same people are going to say it is evidence of guilt. And on the other side, they're going to say it was the only outcome, it was the only thing to do in a political, prosecutorial, judicial system that is so corrupt and so weaponized that there is no hope for justice anymore above and beyond the pardon, which is going to be a symbol of justice for some, but a symbol of injustice for others. This has been an eye-opening journey for me because, on the one hand, it allowed me to fully appreciate that in the media, more often than not, you have people reporting on things that they don't even understand themselves. And if they do understand it, then there is some deliberate misleading. They don't understand it. They have not gone to the source documents to get an understanding themselves. You have one reporter reporting the summary of another reporter. Nobody understands the intricacies, and you don't even get information. You just get superficial misinformation that lets you think you've been informed when you have actually been misled or misinformed. It's allowed me to see how political the judicial system is in the United States. This, Nick Sandmann, were my eye-opening experiences in determining the politicized nature of the judicial process in the United States. I'm sure it's somewhat politicized in Canada. We just do it much more politely, and you don't see it when it happens. But I'm sure it is, although not to the same extent as in the United States. It was eye-opening to me that in the context of this file, and in the context of other files that occurred in tandem, you could predict the result just based on the political orientation of the judges. No mandamus for Flynn, or I should say the mandamus initially granted, then overturned for Flynn, a mandamus granted for someone else, and there's always a way to find a justification in fact and in law, because it's all fluid. You just have to pick one fact and ignore another, or focus on one fact and remove the emphasis from another to come to the conclusion that you wanted to come to from the beginning. And I fully appreciated how that happened. If there's one good thing, and I think that's what people are going to take from this, we know the degree to which the FBI misbehaved in the context of this file, and if they managed to railroad, I think he's a 5-star general, with an untarnished reputation, an untarnished 3.5 decades of public service. If they do that, and they did that, and they did it so well to General Flynn, we can only imagine what they do to the people who are not generals, who are regular people who cannot get the counsel that Michael Flynn got in this file. And when all is said and done, Sidney Powell did an amazing job turning this file around from the file she had inherited from Flynn's previous counsel. Another thing, now that I'm talking to myself out loud, the degree to which attorneys can conduct themselves while being in a conflict of interests and do it to some extent with impunity and without sanctions. Michael Flynn's previous counsel in this file, I only fully appreciated after delving into it, totally conflicted in that Flynn at one point was being accused of FARA violations, which are Foreign Agent Registration Act, may have gotten the name wrong, violations. The attorneys defending him against those apparent charges were the ones who prepared the FARA documentation. So they are defending him against what would otherwise be their own misconduct if in fact there were violations in the FARA filings. And but for new counsel coming in and exploding this entire file open, we would have never known. We would have never known of the patent misconduct. We would have never known of the involvement of prior administrations in the prosecution of Michael Flynn. So although the pardon is going to be something of a fizzle out of this amazing saga, and it's going to be a fizzle out that's going to leave as many people happy as unhappy on both sides, it's been an eye-opening experience. It's been an eye-opening journey. Michael Flynn, politics aside, enjoy the remaining years of your life, and happy Thanksgiving. All that being said and done, stick around my channel if you like it, Viva Frei, and be sure to like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, drop a comment in the comment section below. Let me know what you think of this entire saga, what you think of how it ended. Because I know people are going to be talking about it for a while, and I do hope one day in the future when this saga is being taught to law students, they go see my Michael Flynn playlist. Take care of yourselves, be safe, and peace out.